me, you know I'm a procrastinator. I wait till I have literally no time left to start any school projects to start my school projects. Hi, my name is Jacoy Dunn. I'm 13 years old and this is my 5th year in 4-H. My first science fair project was going to be big. I was going to do an aquaponics system. Aquaponics brings two systems together. Hydroponics, which is the growth of plants on a water-based system, and aquaculture, which is growing fish, like in a fish hatchery. This science fair project would have took 2 months to put together, and I had exactly 2 months. I was determined to get it done. 2 weeks passed, and I still didn't have any of the supplies I needed to start my science fair project. All the stores we went to had none of the supplies we needed to start my project, so I had to buy everything online. Well, except the fish. This is where Jacoy the procrastinator met Jacoy the determined. Another week passed, and I still didn't have any of the supplies I needed for the science fair. Now there was only 1 month until the science fair. I thought I was going to have to finish my project. But I did some more research and found a site that gave us step-by-step directions on how to do the aquaponics system in just 1 month. Well, long story short, I didn't start my project, so I was searching the internet for 1 week-long short science fair projects. The first thing you're going to need for your science fair project is a log notebook. For your log notebook, you will need a lined, empty composition notebook. My first page in my log notebook is my table of contents. From my table of contents, I have my abstract, the introduction, which is the introduction of yourself and of your project. Next, I have my question. What's the purpose of this project? Background research and bibliography. Background research is any information that will help you answer your question, and bibliography is stating your sources. Variables. Your variables are your working materials, your changing materials, and your non-changing materials. My changing material was my citric acid, and my non-changing material was the people I used to test my experiment. My hypothesis was an educated guess about my project. My materials list is a grocery list of any of the items you use to make your project successful. Next is my experimental procedure. Your experimental procedure is all the steps needed to make your project successful. Next is your reflections. Reflections is where you reflect on your whole experiment. Did it run smoothly? Did any of the people have any problems with your project? Next is your conclusion. Your conclusion is where you can tell everything you learned in your project and anything you might change for a further study. Next is your acknowledgements. Acknowledgements is where you can thank anyone who helped your project succeed. Next is your last but definitely not least is your class notes. I took my class notes in my class that I do for my science fair, but if you're not taking a science fair class, you can take any notes on anything you find on the internet that will help you. Here's my science fair board. When you look at this, you might see a well thought out project. But what I see is a perfect example of how procrastination can affect your projects. For instance, the title. Apparently, at 1 o'clock at night, you cannot spell. I was spelling my title at 1 o'clock at night, and I ended up putting the D backwards on do. I spelled the wrong. I spelled it T-H-E, and willpower I spelled with only one L. Another thing I procrastinated on this project is all the documents printed on my board. Our printer broke a week before the science fair. The USB port on it had broken off. So I had to email everything that needed to be printed to my dad so he could print them off at his work. Well, he ended up only printing off the graphs because all the document emails got lost. So my mom, at 10 o'clock at night, had to make a special trip out to Lacombe to my grandparents' house to print off all of the documents. Another thing I procrastinated on is my pictures. I had an archery tournament the night before the science fair, and I had to go print these pictures off at Walgreens. At 8 o'clock at night, after the archery tournament, Walgreens was almost closed, and we had to run in as fast as we could to pick up the pictures. One good thing that happened on this project was my hypothesis. My hypothesis was the kids in between the ages of 6 and 13 will favor the sour drink more than the adults in between the ages of 30 and 60. And this graph shows my results. The adults are the blue, and the kids are the orange. 4 kids liked container number 1 the most, 3 kids liked container number 2, 2 kids liked container number 3, and there were 6 kids in total that liked the sour drink, container number 4. Out of the adults, there were only 5 adults that liked container number 1 and 10 adults that liked container number 2. So in total, there were more kids that liked container number 4, the sour drink, than the adults. My hypothesis was the kids in between the ages of 6 and 13 will favor the sour drink and more than the adults in between the ages of 30 and 60. When I conducted my taste test, I had some problems with my testers. Some of the testers did not want to do my experiment because they thought it would be too scary. And some of the testers didn't like sour stuff. So what I would have done differently was call up more people and find different people to do my test that would actually be willing to test my experiment. The book said to gather all my testers at one time. I did not do this. I had to go to each person's house separately and test each family by themselves. So I ended up spending a whole day just running around, going to different people's houses to test my experiment. Some interesting thing I found in my background research was some things that people consider when seeing whether something is acceptable to eat. One of the things that people consider is the taste. There are 5 different tastes: sour, sweet, salty, bitter, and umami. Umami is the non-salty part of how soy sauce tastes. Also, there's flavor. Out of flavor, there's spicy, astringent, and the smell. The smell can affect how the flavor tastes. Next is palatability. Palatability is seeing whether something is good to eat. And the texture, temperature, color, and shape can all affect whether something is palatable. Also, food acceptability. Some things that can affect food acceptability is the weather, your social situation, your culture, your personal mood, and your health. In conclusion, as you can see, you can still have a successful science fair project, even with a severe procrastination problem. My science fair project tied first place at my science fair, but I would not recommend waiting until the last minute. Procrastination can cause several problems that would not have happened if I would have left enough time. Will I ever learn to not procrastinate? Maybe later. Any questions?
So what made you choose this topic?
Well, I love sour stuff. Ever since I was a kid, I've always wondered whether adults like sour more than kids.